Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar tonight about PG&E's Community Wildfire Safety Program. My name is Dave Meyer, and I'm a senior manager with our Customer Emergency Planning and Operations team, and I'll be your moderator tonight. We're here to share information about what we're doing to reduce wildfire risk and to make our system safer. To start, you can participate in this webinar with American Sign Language, and you can do that by clicking the link that's being provided in the chat. If you'd like to receive this information in a language other than English, we will be hosting in-language presentations this summer. You can check pge.com/webinars for a schedule of all of our webinars, including our in-language webinars. You can also view real-time closed captions in English, Spanish, or Chinese. You can click the CC button on the bottom right corner of your screen and then change the language by clicking Settings. For our presentation tonight, we want to make sure you have the opportunity to ask questions and to give us your feedback. The presentation portion will be about 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for Q&A as well. If you'd like to ask a question, you can send it at any time in the chat. And if we're not able to get to your question today, or if you have a very specific question about your home or your business, you can feel free to email us at wildfiresafety@pge.com, and we will respond promptly. We'll also be recording today's presentation, and we will post it on our website. Again, that's pge.com/webinars. All right, I'd like to start this webinar the same way we start all of our meetings at PG&E, and that's with a quick safety moment. We want to share tips to help you get ready for and to stay safe during wildfire season this year. We encourage everyone to prepare for natural disasters or other emergencies. You can build a disaster kit for you and your family or business. Make sure you include food and water, medication, flashlights, first aid kits, and importantly, a list of emergency contacts in case our cell phones aren't working, and any other things that you need for your specific situation to help keep you safe. For more information on how to prepare for any emergency, you can visit safetyactioncenter.pge.com. Now that we're off to a safe start, we will jump to the agenda. So today we're going to talk about how we identify and reduce wildfire risk. We'll talk about the wildfire safety work that's happening across the communities we serve. We'll give an overview of safety outages and how they keep our communities safer, and then we'll discuss available resources for our customers. So joining me today are Teresa Alvarado. She's our Regional Vice President of the South Bay and Central Coast region. Tom Smith, he's a Senior Manager of the Customer Emergency Planning and Operations team. And John Costa, who's our Senior Manager of Local Government Affairs. John's having some technical issues, so he may not be able to join us tonight, but I'd like to introduce him just in case we're able to get those figured out and have him join. Okay, with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Teresa Alvarado, our Regional Vice President, to discuss the work we're doing to prevent wildfires in our service area.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. To understand where we need to focus our efforts, it's important to understand how we go through the process of identifying where wildfire risk is the greatest. The High Fire Threat District map that we have was developed by the California Public Utilities Commission in coordination with CAL FIRE, as well as the U.S. Forest Service. And it defines wildfire risk in a couple of ways. Elevated being Tier 2 and extreme for Tier 3. You can find the CPUC's High Fire Threat District map by visiting ia.cpuc.ca.gov/firemap, and you can see it also at the bottom of the slide on the right side. So since we've launched our community wildfire safety program, we have significantly reduced wildfire risk from our equipment. We've accomplished this through a combination of ongoing safety programs, long-term improvements, and new situational awareness tools and technology. These measures work together to provide customers with multiple layers of protection. In addition to these safety layers, we are partnering with top innovators to stop catastrophic wildfires. we recently joined X Prize Wildfire. It's a 4-year competition that encourages and brings together entrepreneurs, scientists, and others across the world to advance tools that will prevent wildfires before they become destructive. This type of collaboration is extremely exciting, partnering with technology, with philanthropy, and with government partners. And it's really necessary to bring all these great minds together to reduce wildfire risk across our state and beyond. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Smith, and he's going to talk about what's new in our service area.
Great. Thank you, Teresa. My name is Tom Smith. I'm the Senior Manager for our Customer Emergency Planning and Operations team. I'm going to discuss our Community Wildfire Safety Program and the work we're doing to lower the risk of wildfire in our service area. So let's go on to the next slide here. So first, let's talk about trees. Trees are a huge source of wildfire risk, and that's why every year we inspect vegetation on 100,000 miles of power lines. We prune or cut down more than 1 million trees that present hazards to our reliability, and we do more pruning where we've had a high volume of vegetation-caused outages. Together, this work reduces wildfire risk and improves reliability for our customers. If any safety work is planned on your property, you can expect an advance notification from us by text or email. And for more information on any of our vegetation management work, you can visit pge.com/trees. Now let's talk about how we're strengthening the electric grid. So we're reducing wildfire risk by strengthening poles and installing stronger covered power lines. We call this overhead system hardening. Over the past 5 years, we've completed overhead system hardening work totaling over 1,000 miles across our service area, similar to what you see here in the pictures depicted here in the slide. Through the end of next year, we're working toward additional overhead system hardening projects totaling 185 additional miles. So this work will occur over several years and helps to prevent wildfires and significantly improve reliability during the severe weather. So now let's talk about situational awareness. And to help us better understand and respond to risk, we built and installed our own network of high-definition cameras and weather stations. In 2022, we reached our goal of 600 total high-definition cameras installed, allowing us the ability to see more than 90% of the high fire risk areas we serve. We've also completed a comprehensive network of advanced weather stations, which give us real-time information, temperature, humidity, etc. You can see cameras and stations in our community across our service territory by visiting pge.com/weather. So now let's turn to something that I'm sure if you've watched TV in the last few months or over the past year, I'm sure you've seen our commercials where we're talking about this. We are committed to burying 10,000 miles of high voltage distribution power lines in and near the highest fire risk areas. So moving the power lines from overhead to underground reduces ignition risk by approximately 99% in that location. This undergrounding, it limits future safety power outages, it improves overall system reliability, and decreases the need for all of that tree work. Undergrounding also helps lower ongoing maintenance, and of course, as I mentioned, the vegetation management work, as well as the cost, and of course, safety, because tree work is inherently dangerous work. Over the past 2 years, we've completed 268 miles of undergrounding in our service area. And through the end of next year, we're projecting and working hard toward completing an additional 800 miles of undergrounding projects. And this is a stark contrast to years past, where in a given year, 5 to 10 years ago, we may have done 10, 15 miles in a given year, and that would be considered an aggressive year of undergrounding. Think about 800 additional miles at the end of next year. So of course, work plans can change, especially given the long lead time that undergrounding projects require. But we'll continue to share updated details related to our undergrounding projects in the future. There's maps with approximate locations for currently forecasted work, and that can be found at pge.com/undergrounding. So now let's talk a little bit about potential wildfire safety outages and updates for this year. So first, we're going to talk about enhanced power line safety settings. So in 2021, we added more sensitive safety settings on power lines that automatically turn off the power within 1/10 of a second to help stop wildfires before they start. These are called enhanced power line safety settings, or EPSS for short. In 2022, because of the success of the program, we expanded these settings to every customer who lives in the high fire risk areas. And these settings are proven to help stop wildfires. Last year, there was a 68% reduction in ignitions and a 99% reduction in ignition impact, meaning nearly all fires started were smaller and impacted less area despite the very dry conditions that we saw last year. If the power is turned off, we must then check the line for damage. So we'll have crews in the neighborhoods. We've got folks on the ground walking in heavily wooded areas potentially. We've got air patrols, and of course, trucks and crew riding in mobile vehicles. After there's an outage on an EPSS protected line, we identify any outage caused before and during while we're repairing the damage and restoring power. So we're going to look to try and find the root cause of what caused that outage, whether it be a tree branch, potentially guarding the line from animal impacts, et cetera. And so we're going to try and identify that to keep that from happening in the future. And this review process helps us determine other steps we can take on other circuits to help minimize the impact of outages there as well. So we're learning lessons also, and that'll also help us overall improve customer service. So now let's talk about another type of wildfire safety outage, public safety power shutoffs. High winds can cause tree branches and debris to hit electric lines, damage our equipment, and potentially lead to a wind-driven wildfire. That is why we may need to turn off the power during severe weather to help prevent wildfires. This is called a public safety power shutoff, or PSPS. We use this tool when we expect the weather to be so severe that people's safety, lives, homes, and businesses may be in danger of wildfires. Every wildfire season is different. We received a lot of rain and snow over the past 3 months, but we know that dry conditions in late summer and coming this fall are still a significant risk. Actual real-time conditions always will determine if we need to shut off the power to ensure safety. So next, let's talk a little bit about the similarities and the differences between EPSS and PSPS. Of course, we have all these acronyms, right? So I understand it can be a little confusing. So let's highlight some of the differences. Every day we look at wildfire risk and we decide what we need to do to protect customers. The EPSS system, or the program, reduces risk from fuel-driven wildfires. We activate EPSS when we have a combination of dry fuels and low humidity. On the other hand, public safety power shutoffs reduce the risk of a wind-driven wildfire. So we use public safety power shutoffs when we have low humidity levels, that high wind forecast, that northerly winds that we typically get in the fall, red flag warnings declared by the National Weather Service, and then observations of the dry material. And when I talk about fuel, that doesn't mean like gas cans, right? Fuel is bushes, trees, dry grasses. All the atmospheric river and all the moisture that we got this spring, the April showers bring May flowers. Well, when the entire first 3 months of the year rains, we're going to get a lot of growth. So there's going to be a lot of fuel this year. And so that's why we're definitely talking about the potential of PSPS. We have not had one in a few years, but when there is that fuel on the ground, if we see high winds, there is a chance that may happen. So we can inform you in advance of a public safety power shutoff because we base it on the weather forecasts. But we can't inform you ahead of an EPSS outage because it's automatic. For any type of outage, we will inform you as soon as possible and give you regular updates. For more information on the status of an outage and the entire restoration process, customers can visit pge.com/outages. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Teresa, who's going to talk a little bit more about customer resources that are available in your community. Take it away, Teresa.
Thank you, Tom. Really good info there. So we're going to talk about resources to keep you safe. As we've already seen this year, through a historic series of winter storms, earthquakes, floods, and more, emergencies can happen at any time. And we want you to know that the resources that we'll cover next are available to support you during all kinds of emergencies, not just during wildfire season. So during a public safety power shutoff, we open local community resource centers where you can access resources, like having a safe location to meet your basic power needs, like charging medical equipment and electronic devices. We have up-to-date information about the PSPS, and we have water, snacks, and other essential items available. You can find a community resource center near you during a PSPS by visiting pge.com/CRC. We're also working with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers and 16 participating disability, disaster, access, and resources centers to provide support before and during power shutoffs. This includes hotel stays, food stipends, and transportation as needed for eligible customers with access and functional needs. On this map, you can see the counties with those DDAR locations. If you or another member of your household depends on electricity for medical needs, please reach out to your local disability, disaster, access, and resources center prior to a public safety power shutoff for assistance. Highlighted here, we also have several programs that can help you find out how you might be able to get backup power during an outage. We offer financial support and rebates for our most impacted customers. To learn more about these programs, please visit pge.com/backuppower or any of the other links displayed here on the screen. We're happy to answer any questions that you have about energy solutions. Wildfire risk continues to grow in California and frankly throughout the West, and we want to make sure that our customers are prepared. One resource that we want to highlight is our video learning series. It's called 7 Saturdays to a More Fire-Resistant Home. The series can help you prepare your family, your home, and your community for wildfire season. The 7 Saturdays series and other resources can help you and your family stay safe and be found on our Safety Action Center, which you can find at safetyactioncenter.pge.com. So now I'll turn it back to Dave, who will share more about customer resources and lead our question and answer with you.
Thank you, Teresa. So you can find more information on the customer resources and general information about the wildfire safety efforts at pge.com/wildfire safety. Excuse me. Or you can go directly to any of the pages shown here if you want to get straight to the information you're interested in. So we are going to transition to the Q&A portion of the event this evening. But before we start, I'll remind everyone that we will have this presentation posted to the PG&E website at pge.com/webinar, webinars, plural with an S, in the next few weeks. We've received some great questions already. Please keep them coming. You can ask a question by submitting them and typing them into the Q&A box via chat. And we're going to do our best to answer all the questions we receive. But if for some reason we're not able to get to your question today, or if you think of something after we end the session, you can reach out to our dedicated email address for the program. That's wildfiresafety@pge.com, and we will respond to you. We do have a few other subject matter experts with us this evening. So for our team members that I didn't introduce at the beginning, please remember to introduce yourselves as we come to you with questions. So with that, we will get started. First, I do want to call out, we had a couple customers who pointed out the link to the CPUC fire map was requiring a login. There are often challenges with that link. The formal link to that map. I've found that Googling CPUC fire map is a consistent way to get that map and see where your home, your business, whatever site you're interested in, where that falls within the high fire risk areas or high fire threat districts. Okay, so let's jump in. So I'm going to come to Austin first. We have a question from Seth. He asks, how can the local fire safe councils work with PG&E to help support the local wildfire preparedness efforts and the overall community engagement with our customers?
Great, thank you, Dave. Hey, good evening, everyone. I am Austin Sharp. I'm the senior manager for PG&E's regional team out here in Sonoma and North Bay divisions, covering Sonoma County, Marin County, and Napa County. And it's a great question because I think as we've gone through and really improved all of our work on wildfire safety and wildfire preparedness, a huge part of this is being able to engage with our local county OES, with our fire safe councils, with our communities, and making sure they understand the work we're doing and how we can partner to ensure that we're taking all the steps that we can to make sure that communities are safe. So to answer directly how the Fire Safe Council can kind of coordinate with PG&E, as part of our wildfire safety preparedness, we've actually added a couple of roles to the company. One of the main roles is a PSS, a public safety specialist. Typically, they are ex-fire, and so they come over to PG&E and they work with us to coordinate directly with our county OES partners as well as local fire safe councils. So in a given region and area, we should have a PSS that would be able to engage with the Fire Safe Council. We've also done some things too on the engagement front through the regional teams, of which I'm a member, to go out to different safety fairs, be on these webinars, on different other types of webinars to talk to customers about wildfire safety and preparedness. And we've also partnered with the public safety specialist team if those fire safe councils need support. Out here in Napa, we did send a letter of support to get some funding for that fire safe council and work directly with them. So there's a couple different ways that can happen. We're looking to expand and always looking to get better. But I think, we put in the chat, and I put this out for everybody, that if you have a given area that you would like to know who your PSS is, your public safety specialist, as well as opportunities to engage on wildfire safety, we have an email inbox, wildfiresafety@pge.com, and you can send in your questions or potential requests for support and engagement there. We'd be more than happy to get in touch with you. And so I will turn it over right now to April Kennedy with Veg Management, because I think, April, you recently did some support for a Fire Safe Council, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me okay, Austin? Great, thank you. My name is April Kennedy. I'm the senior manager covering vegetation management in the North Coast region. And one thing I also wanted to highlight, in addition to what Austin shared, is that the vegetation management program has had a grant funding program in place since 2013, which was the start of our last major drought. And any fire safe council within California and our service territory can apply to the grant application that usually starts in January and February of each year. Every proposal is reviewed. There are some certain criteria that have to be met within that funding, but that's an excellent way where PG&E actually gives money away to fire safe councils to help protect the community. There are often projects that also tie into some of our wildfire mitigation efforts near power lines. So that's a good opportunity. We also have a lot of PG&E employees that do attend fire safe councils. So if there's one that you feel like we're missing, especially from the vegetation management group, please reach out to the wildfire safety email that was put in the chat, and we can branch out and make sure that your needs and concerns are heard and that we're partnering with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, both Austin and April. So I'm going to come to Teresa next with a question about undergrounding. This customer says they live in an area that has lots of trees, there are high winds, sounds, reading between the lines, sound like there are limited ingress and egress. So they're wondering where they can get more information about potential undergrounding in their community. So can you touch on how our risk model works and how we prioritize areas for undergrounding?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, since we made our commitment to underground 10,000 miles of lines, we've had a number of inquiries from all around our service area. Of course, undergrounding is probably the most effective way to eliminate wildfire risk. It's a very important tool. As Tom mentioned earlier, it is something we have ramped up significantly, and we are working to ensure that we get to the highest fire risk areas as determined by that CPUC map. We're really looking at the most vulnerable communities. That does not mean that there are not many communities that would significantly benefit from a wildfire risk perspective from undergrounding. The fact is that the team just really has to look very much at the data and make decisions in that way, focused on risk. However, you know, the models do change over time, and there are other factors that are starting to be looked at and considered as part of the threat and the risk. So the first place you know to look is pge.com/undergrounding. But if you'd like to submit your name and your contact info and which community you live in, I'd be happy to connect you with the regional team. And there may be something going on or in the planning stages that would be relevant and beneficial for you.
All right, thank you, Teresa. All right, Tom, I'm going to come to you next. Many customers in 2021 and 2022 were impacted by outages with the Enhanced Powerline Safety Settings program. So can you tell us what changes we're making to help improve the program and our responsiveness?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Definitely recognize that there was some frustration and pockets in targeted communities when it comes to enhanced powerline safety settings. And I would definitely share that we've learned a lot of lessons in terms of both outage response and the way we patrol and review any outage. So in other words, when there is an outage, the way that we patrol and make it safe and ensure that things are safe to turn the power back on, we've made strides there in things like something that's called a fault indicator. And what that is that's placed on a tap line. And so if the fault is originating down that tap line, there's a big flashing light that's flashing. It's not big, but it's a small enough, but visual from the ground, flashing light that's flashing up there to help our crews understand that the outage is in that direction, not the other direction. So you can imagine our circuits snake through communities, right? Go over ridges, down through inaccessible areas. And so these things like fault indicators really shorten up the amount of outage time that is experienced because it's shortening up the overall time to patrol. 2 years ago, 2021, we saw outage, times at times would exceed, 6 hours. Last year, we came in just short of an average of less than 4 hours in those outages. And this year we're targeting to shorten them up even more. So looking at how we patrol and restore is a big change. The other thing is really, as I talked about earlier, rooting out the causes. So we do something called a multi-outage review. So when there is persistent outages in any community, we have a team of distribution operations folks, as well as our external field crews that go out and research the outages, the points of potential suspected outage, and really try and hone in on what is driving that. I mean, we found things like nests of turkeys and big herds of turkeys that were flying up into the lines causing outages. We've found unique pockets of trees that were being blown in a certain direction. And so looking at trimming some additional branches and then, putting up animal guards to keep things like small birds and squirrels and things. So we've done a lot of review there, and we've seen some great results late summer and into last fall with doing some of that work. And then lastly, really, it's about communication. So when you go to pge.com and look at our outage map, if you are enabled, if your circuit has EPSS enabled on that line, you will see a blue bar that will come up when you search your address that talks about EPSS and helps you understand a little bit more. We sent out mailers last year, and we're continuing to do that this year to help you all as customers understand the safety benefits for EPSS in your community. And then when we do have outages, making sure that we're communicating about those outages and attempting as best we can to make sure you understand the cause of that outage. And then, of course, a really accurate time of when that power is going to come back on. So we've made a lot of strides. We've learned a lot of lessons over the past 18 months or 2 years now of EPSS. And we're still going to continue, to make the program better. So I hope that helps explain that in a little more detail. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Tom. All right, I'm going to go to April next. So a customer asks if they see a tree that looks like it's too close or potentially touching the power lines, how can they let PG&E know about that?
Yeah, great question. And I think to everyone's point on this call and our team members out in the field here, vegetation is obviously dynamic. Just looking at the catastrophic weather event we had this winter, we've had a lot of trees that did fail into power lines or failed onto customers' homes. But there's also a lot of vegetation that's partially damaged and partially failed that hasn't fallen yet. So there's several opportunities to reach out to PG&E and report those items, but one opportunity that I think is really been successful is the Reported app. So that's an app that any person can download. You can take pictures of the situation that you're concerned about, and it's reported immediately to PG&E. We process it, and we're able to use those pictures to determine if it's something that we need to address within a matter of hours or potentially look at within a matter of days. So we've had quite a few situations where we've had partially broken branches, overhanging power lines, trees that may be partially uprooted that customers have sent to us, and we've been able to act on those and then also report back to the customer what the action was and thank them for their support.
Right, thank you, April. And I will point out the Reported app is a great new tool that we've created for customers who live in the high fire risk areas. But if there are any situations that look like they're an emergency, right? Sparking lines, a pole leaning where it's going to fall over, right? Those kinds of situations, that's not the time to use the app. If there's any kind of emergency, right, sparking lines, for example, call 911, make sure that you and others are out of the area. If there are other more urgent issues that shouldn't wait for an app review, you can also call us at 1-800-743-5000. That's PGE 5000 to report that directly to us as well. We don't want to wait for app submissions if they are urgent issues. Okay, we have a question about public safety power shutoff. So the question is essentially saying when, I'm going to rephrase a little bit because it's a little long, when we use the term public safety, it could be confusing and imply that PG&E is a public safety entity like a law enforcement or a fire agency. So they're asking why we use the term public safety power shutoff. A little bit of a complicated answer. I think anytime we try to name a program, there are challenges there. Public safety power shutoff in particular, we began at PG&E in 2018, but it was a program that was done in some other utilities to the south, Southern California Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric, before PG&E began doing it. And so as we worked through across California with the CPUC on what public safety power shutoffs were going to look like, the other utilities adopted the name that had already been in use down there to the south of us. So that's the reason for it. Understanding that that could cause some confusion. I think it's less about PG&E trying to be a public safety entity and more about the fact that the power is being shut off for the safety of the public, for the safety of the communities we serve. So that's the reason for the name public safety power shutoff. Okay, I'm going to come back to Tom. Question from Bob. Can you explain why communities that may have already been undergrounded or already have their lines underground may be impacted by a PSPS or a public safety power shutoff?
Bob, this is an awesome question. I'm really glad you asked, because this is the one that confuses people. And at first I was in the same boat. I'm like, wait a minute, there's no fire danger. My presentation just told you 99% reduction in fire danger in underground. So why do you shut the power off for safety if my power lines are already underground? So it's a great question. So a power circuit, so the circuits that go out to the distribution circuits flow from a substation. There's two scenarios in which a public safety power shutoff would have to be called on an underground line. And I'm going to cover both scenarios. The first one is your power comes out of a distribution substation, and a transmission line has the power comes in to that substation via a large transmission line, 60,000, 230,000, 500,000 volts, comes into a substation that takes the power, steps it down slightly to 12,000 volts, 21,000 volts, takes it out to your home. Then you have the transformer, obviously, that delivers it to your home. If the lines, your neighborhood may be underground. However, if you trace that line back at some point, it probably pops up overhead at some point before it gets back to the substation. And that area of overhead line is in a high fire threat area. And we have the high winds and the low humidity and the fuel present, then we would have to call a public safety power shutoff on that section of the overhead line. And although you're undergrounded past that, the fact that once we turn the power off there, obviously that entire circuit then is de-energized. So that's the first situation. And so the wind in that situation, likely you would see the wind blowing at your home, and you would definitely say, oh, I understand why PG&E is doing this. Things could blow into lines and definitely cause a catastrophic wildfire. There is a second scenario, though, and this is the one that really gets people thinking, like, what is going on? The second one is, remember I talked about the transmission line that comes into the substation with the 230 or 500,000 volts. That line is going to come from very far away. And a lot of those times, those transmission lines themselves are in the high fire threat areas and are also impacted by the high winds and the fuel and the humidity situation. And so in that case, we have to turn off the transmission line that ultimately serves your substation. That said, it could be 20 miles away where that's coming in. Now, that's not likely. Usually we can figure out a way to reroute the power to get it to the substation, but on occasions it does happen. So the wind may be completely calm in your community, but because of that transmission line impact, the supply to the substation that provides your community with that, you may also unfortunately have to experience public safety power shutoff. So we're working hard to get back ties and think about ways to reroute the power when we can safely into areas that aren't having to be impacted by the PSPS to help customers stay on and minimize the number of customers impacted by an event. So I hope that helped to explain the scenarios and why sometimes we have to shut the power off, even though your line is underground.
All right, thank you, Tom. I'm going to come back to April for another vegetation management question. So there are trees that are trimmed back 4 feet. Sometimes they're trimmed 12 feet. Sometimes trees are removed. Can you help us understand what goes into that decision of how much may need to be trimmed or when a tree needs to be removed?
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes we get feedback with our program that when we're pruning, it's not aesthetic pruning, that the trees may not be rounded, as if an individual hired a private tree company to prune their tree. And so most utilities utilize a scientific tree pruning technique known as directional pruning. And it's something that the International Society of Arboriculture actually supports and prefers. And the goal of this is to prune the least amount of the tree that's impacting what we would call the target, in this case, the power lines. And that's actually going to be less stressful for the tree. So even though in some cases you may see a tree where that portion of it may look kind of like a V, or it may have, a side that has been pruned back out of it, we're actually training that tree to grow away from the power lines. And we are taking the least amount of pruning cuts away from that tree so that we're not unnecessarily stressing that tree out. So that's just one thing that, you know, oftentimes aesthetically, you know, we do get some negative feedback, but there is science that's based on that. We also are often dealt with a situation where we've got incompatible trees next to power lines. So you might have a redwood tree, for example, that wants to grow to be 150 feet tall that's planted directly under a power line. And those are scenarios that obviously aren't ideal. So in that case, we are going to look for the opportunity of what's the best situation to manage that potential risk. So we will look at pruning that tree. In our high fire threat district areas, we have to get a minimum of 12 feet of clearance. And that's, again, not just to buffer that 4 feet of clearance, but to look at those things we've all seen as the environment's changed with massive wind events, situations where we've got trees that are regenerating rapidly like they are after this year's winter event. So there's a multitude of environmental factors that we have to take into account. In addition to pruning and managing about 1 million trees a year, we have to have a cycle where we come back at least once a year and evaluate these trees. So there's a lot of complexities that go into just managing that many trees near power lines. But then we're going to look at the tree and determine, you know, can we prune it? Is that the best thing to do? We're going to reach out to the customer and ask them, do they have a preference? You know, if we've got a really incompatible tree, we may ask to remove that tree if the customer is in support of that. So those are just some of the factors that go into vegetation management, making those decisions about trees, and then also sometimes why trees may look a little oddly shaped when we do perform our work.
Thanks, April. And stay with me. We have one just come in as you were finishing, so I'll let you touch on it since it is in the same general vicinity here. They're asking if there's an agency, I'm assuming the answer is the CPUC, but if there's an agency that has oversight of PG&E's vegetation management program.
Yes, so the CPUC is one of our overseers. Also, CAL FIRE has laws in place that oversee vegetation management in terms of pruning trees as well as pole clearing.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to come to Teresa next. This webinar tonight is very wildfire and safety focused, but we received a question about customer rates. So can you provide some more information about what customers may be experiencing regarding their rates?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, PG&E recognizes that it's our responsibility to serve our customers safely and reliably, while also keeping bills as low as possible. You know, we're here to help all of our customers save money by working with them to find the best rate plan for their household or their business, sharing no and low cost actions to help them reduce energy use and better manage their monthly bills. We're also really focused on keeping our customer costs at or below inflation for the longer term, not just the high inflation numbers that we've seen lately, but the long-term inflation numbers between 2 and 4% a year. We reduced our operating costs by 3% in 2022, and we've identified more than 200 projects company-wide to further reduce costs. I'll give you a couple of examples. With regard to reducing vegetation management costs, we've reduced them by $300 million in 2023 through improved standardized work practices, quality controls, and safety performance, while still meeting our compliance and customer commitments. We're reducing undergrounding costs through reducing our trench depth, delivering cost savings of $70 million in 2023. So that was a new thing this year. We questioned whether we had to dig so deep to put our utilities underground, and that was a big savings. So we're just continuing to look at opportunities to reduce costs. We do have a couple of upcoming rate changes that will impact energy bills. In June, residential non-care, which is an income qualified program, non-care customers who receive both their electric supply and delivery from PG&E received a rate reduction of 1.8%, which will help offset further rate increases that we're going to see going forward, just as part of our ongoing business. But let me just say, given that it's almost, it doesn't quite feel like summer, but I know that temperatures are going to be going up. We do have a number of tools to help our customers prepare for warmer weather. I just recently added insulation to my home. Of course, that helps keep the home cooler in the summertime. You can seal leaky ducts, which can actually lose up to 15% of cooled air before it reaches your living spaces. And you can set the thermostat at 78 degrees, as I'm sure you've heard many, many times. We do have a tool online. It's on our website. You can get a personalized rate plan comparison to make sure that you're on the best rate plan for your personal energy use. We also have many programs for income qualified customers that can receive financial assistance programs. So one is called CARE, the California Alternative Rates for Energy, and the other is the Family Electric Rate Assistance, or FARA. And you can find information about both of those on our website. And if you just look up income qualified programs, there's quite a bit of information there, and there are several programs you can look at. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Teresa, and thanks for taking the time to touch on that. I know rates are an important topic, whether we're on a wildfire safety webinar or not. It's an important topic to cover and share with our customers. Thank you. All right, Tom, I'm going to come back to you. We have a question from Nicole, and Nicole asks, what can I do to prepare for PSPS? Is there information PG&E needs to make sure that I know these events are coming?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for it. This is perfect. I love it. So first off, www.pge.com/PSPS. You're going to look on the right-hand side of the screen after you get down through the big picture, and you're going to see on the right-hand side, you're going to see a tab that says Prepare for a PSPS. And that's going to give you a little bit of a checklist to help you think about your family and your home. And so it's going to talk about thinking about food, freezing ice ahead of time, making sure that, you're minimizing your trips to the fridge and getting things ready in that kind of space, thinking about technology, charging up devices, understanding, your needs for power, especially if you're energy dependent or any kind of vulnerable status. Please make sure that all of your devices are charged. Cell phone, any kind of light source, etc. There's also, of course, the rechargeable batteries. Definitely encourage those. And then thinking about solar, powered lighting. Thinking about cash on hand to potentially fill up, for gas and fuel, etc. Most of the PSPS outages are, run anywhere from, a short one of just a few hours up to a day. So we're not talking, weeks at a time, but definitely something that you want to, do the checklist here that we've got on the web to help you get ready there. In terms of what PG&E is looking for from you as a customer, is the number one thing I can reinforce is contact info, contact info, contact info. So think about the last time that you've talked with PG&E. Many of you, I'm sure, have been in your homes for a while, but did you get a new cell phone? Did you change your email address? Did you change the number on your cell phone? So think about all those things and think about when's the last time you updated your information with us, and make sure, and you can do that on my account, myenergy@pg.com, or you can also call our 800 number and update contact information. And that will allow us to make sure that we can get those urgent updates to you, both for if there is going to be a public safety power shutoff, or for any, reliability or storm outage. Anything that may happen, we can get in contact with you. So please make sure that contact info is up to date. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dave. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And thanks for really touching on the importance of contact info outside of wildfire safety. It's very important to know when a public safety power shutoff might occur and have that advance warning. And if we don't have a way to contact you, we can't provide that. But as you mentioned, whether it's a storm or any other a regular outage during a blue sky day, if we don't have your contact information, that doesn't give us the opportunity to provide information. Customers can choose phone calls, text message, and or email, any of the three within their account if they'd like to have information provided to them in one or more of those specific through one of those channels. Okay, I'm going to go to Austin. A question about defensible space. Customer asks if there are sources of help, either assistance or education, for homeowners as they clear a defensive perimeter around their homes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, a really good question, and one that I think is really important because, as we talked earlier around coordinating with communities, there's a lot that can be done by a community, a homeowner, to help make their homes more fire safe and fire resistant. So I believe we had the slide up a minute ago. We're going to put it back up again, but there's PG&E's 7 Saturdays to a more fire resistant home. So it's a web series that essentially goes over different topics, such as creating defensible space. And you can see some other ones on here, like planning for an emergency, preparing your home against fires, being more fire safe in your community. And you can go onto the Safety Action Center.pge.com, and you can see these videos and little web bites that will allow you, give you some information around these things. The other thing we're putting into the chat right now is a link to a kind of one-page document that covers some of the guidance that PG&E provides for utility defensible space. So it'll help inform what you should do around your home and to make sure that there's clean defensible space around your home and then typically around utility equipment. Most of this is based off of recommendations and work with CAL FIRE. So the CAL FIRE website is also a really good resource for that as well. Typically, cities and counties, they also have either on their websites or through their public works departments more information about creating defensible space too. So you can always go to those resources and get more guidance, and there may be particular programs through those entities that would be able to assist on defensible space. So thank you, Dave.
All right, thanks, Austin. We will come back to Tom with the undergrounding question. I'm just going to read this because it's pretty straightforward. Question from Beth. How can I find out when lines might be moved underground for our area? I heard it might be planned, but don't have an idea when.
Yeah, so great question. So again, going to give another website, again, www.pge.com/undergrounding. I believe it's in the links that have been provided. But on our undergrounding link, if you scroll down past all of the initial information in the tabs, you're going to get to this area that says where the work is happening. And you can click on that. And there's county specific maps that have locations for work completed or forecast for 2023 or 2024. Now, what that doesn't tell you is the second part of your question, Beth, which is when. The when portion is really dependent on, as they move closer towards the work, anybody that's going to be directly impacted or their specific community is going to be contacted. There are letters that we're mailing out, as well as some other opportunities for some customer feedback, I think, in the communities that could be planned, depending on the scope and nature of the project and really how many people are impacted. But you will be notified if your area is going to be directly impacted in front of your home. I will say, some of the undergrounding work can be a little bit disruptive in terms of it's a construction project, right? We're going to put a big power line that was overhead down into the ground. So there's going to be some trenching and some removal of material and potentially cutting of roads, et cetera, to get that work done. So we definitely there's a complete permitting process and working with a city or local agency. And then there's a whole notification process that takes place. So if it's possible and we can get you more information, I would encourage you can email us at wildfiresafety@pg.com. And if there is some more information, we can get that out to you if we do know more about scheduling. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. And I think as Teresa mentioned earlier, right, we're constantly evolving our models, our risk models, lessons learned as we underground. So the pge.com/undergrounding does share the plans, as you mentioned, for the next this year and next. But it's a place to go check back as we move into the future, because we don't have a place where we can share a 7, 8, 9, 10-year plan, right? Because that's going to change over time as we refine the program. Okay, let's see. I think we're getting through most of these questions here. Encourage customers. We do have a few minutes left. If there are questions, that you have. Don't be shy in submitting those via the chat, and we will do our best to answer them for you. I'll pause and see if there are any coming in. I know that long pause feels awkward, but I want to make sure we have a chance to answer any questions that come in from our customers. So yeah, please submit them. And if it's something that you don't want to have answered directly tonight live, maybe something personal, again, there's the email address on the bottom of the screen here, wildfiresafety@pge.com. You can always submit questions there, and we will respond to you. Okay. I've seen a couple specific ones coming in that maybe I think our team's going to respond and suggest folks go to the wildfiresafety@pge.com inbox. Let's see, I'm reading as they're coming through, folks, so thanks for bearing with us. We've gotten through the bulk of the questions. I think there's one, I'm going to try to do my best here to read between the lines of what the customer is asking, and I'll take the first stab and see if we have any of our team members who want to jump in. Asking, we're talking about safety and wildfire safety on this webinar, and we talk about that a lot. So the customer's asking why so much focus on wildfire safety, and I think when we look at California and at wildfires over the past decade, and really the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen a significant shift in the way that fires have impacted our state and the safety of all the residents of the state. And no utility who serves customers in the high wildfire risk areas can take a stance where they just sit by idly, right? This is a huge risk to the state and something that PG&E is taking head on, right, to make sure that we are keeping our customers safe from catastrophic wildfires. So we have all the layers of protection that we're putting in place from undergrounding and system hardening, right, which are longer term solutions to reducing wildfire risk. And as well, there are shorter term or operational type solutions to the problem, such as the Enhanced Power Line Safety Settings program, right, that turns off power if there's a hazard in the high fire risk areas. And of course, public safety power shutoff, which reduces that risk of significant wind-driven wildfires, right, when wind is high and wildfire risk is the greatest. So really, it's a multi-layered approach that PG&E is taking in support of our stand that catastrophic wildfires shall stop. Anyone want to add to that? No? Okay. Then I will come to this may be Tom or Austin. I'll leave it to you guys to decide. Stan's asking if there are programs specifically talking about customers who may have a disability or be vulnerable, if there are programs that can help them and improve their resiliency in case power goes out in their area.
Yeah, I can take this. So this is Tom. I would definitely say that disabled veterans are definitely belong as a part of our AFN program. So our access and functional needs customers, the customers that, and also I would definitely encourage anyone with a disability to look into enrolling in our medical baseline program. And so that's going to give you a couple of benefits. One is it's going to ensure that there's a little bit of bill credit and consideration for anything that you may need in terms of a medical device for if you're energy dependent on any medical device, it's going to give you a little bit of help there. But the other thing that it's going to do is it's going to put you into a category to where when there are any wildfire safety outages or any type of special circumstance, we ensure that your notifications are received, and we do additional retries to customers to ensure that they are notified and supported during any sort of outage. The other thing that I would encourage anybody that is on Medical Baseline or part of our AFN community is to reach out to our 211, the California Network of 211, and you can get more information on that 211.ca.org. The link is up there in the top right of the screen. Anybody on the MBL program or AFN customer can pre-contact the 211 service, and basically they will do a consultation with you to determine your needs in case of an extended power outage, and will help you get the resources that you need, whether it be a battery. Maybe it's just arranging to ensure that there's transportation to a hotel to ensure that you have power during that outage. Maybe it's a food voucher, fuel for it. Maybe you have your own generator already and you want to stay in your home and it's just fuel that you would need, or whatever it is. By contacting 211, they'll help you make a plan so that when something does happen, you're going to be ready and prepared for it, and you don't have to wait until the power goes out to take advantage of that. So please make sure that you're reaching out to that. Make sure MBL and you're enrolled in that so you can take advantage of all those benefits. The other thing that I would say is, as a customer emergency planning and operations team, we engage with Cal OES, so the Office of Emergency Services, and we were actually just on a call yesterday talking with a few of the California veterans groups. And so we're engaging with them, and we're making sure that we're getting that information. We're going to be getting that information out to veterans locate facilities, and also, you know, any disabled veterans that may live out in on their own. So we're going to be partnering with them throughout the rest of this year to help get some additional information out there. So we're really excited about that as well. So please take advantage of those resources if you're so in need. So thanks, Dave.
All right, thanks, Tom. Stay with me. I know we're at time. We have one more question that came in, so I want to make sure we cover it. A customer's asking if there is a map or an area they can see the power lines that serve their area, and specifically about understanding whether or not they should be preparing for potential PSPS events. Can you touch on the PSPS planning maps that's available?
Yep, one more link there, www.pge.com/PSPS planning maps. There's maps there, and what this is it's a map similar to our outage map, but instead of our outages, it's going to show potential PSPS areas where we had PSPS in the past. And then coming later this fall, we're going to have more information on our system hardening work in there, potential EPSS enablement areas, and also some of the undergrounding work. So we're really excited about that, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done for a 2023 update that's happening. We're looking at September, October for that update, but you can see the PSPS prior areas there live now. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Thank you, Tom, and thank you to all of our team. I'm going to hand it over to Teresa to close out our session tonight.
Perfect. Thanks to everyone who's been on the call. Thank you for those who have called in, asked really good questions. I hope you can share this information with your neighbors. Again, this particular webinar, you can find it on our website, pge.com/webinars. It'll take a couple of weeks to get uploaded, but you can share it with others as well. I know we shared many, many websites with you, and you'll be able to get those from that webinar as well when we have it recorded and uploaded. But always, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to email us directly. We will respond. We are at wildfiresafety@pge.com. Thank you again, and have a safe evening.